looks really good. Now you could argue about this and that there's a bit of a shadow edge at that transition, but remember, the rear screen on our model is only theoretical. The real rear screen gets offset down. So I'm not going to worry about that too much. I'm just looking at the blend region. Look how beautiful that is. And then I also tend to use double horizon, which is very picky, because you've basically got like a pitch black and then a very smooth, bright ring around it. And I move it around really slow, and I watch how the highlights change. So you see, let me pause here for a moment. With ISO angle, the highlight stays the same, but I'm moving around. Not because it's necessarily more realistic, but because it gives me a very good idea of what's really going on. With the shaders like this, you're moving around and it changes. It's, of course, much more realistic. If you move your head around, then the highlight's gonna change to your viewpoint. But it's a little bit harder to really spot the small problems. Now, I'm seeing this, and I think it looks really good. It's a little bit harder to judge. Okay, maybe this is a bit rapid, the way this transition is going. Let me turn on the model, so that's this boundary. Okay. Ooh, it's actually, it seems like it's like hitting a bit of a wall here at the peak. It's stopping and then it's coming through. But actually I think that's kind of alright. So that's the shaders. So I use ISO angle, I use the shaders, but what I also use is the curvature evaluation. To me, the curvature evaluation tool is one of the best because it shows you problems like none other in a graphical sense. However, it's somewhat more mathematical. So let me pause again for just a moment and talk about this. It's more mathematical. What does that mean? Well, what do we really care about has to be really good on the surfaces. It's the highlight. The highlight gives us a direct depiction of the shape, of the form, as reflection, as reflected by the world around it. That's the most important thing for our exterior body. A mathematical, a more mathematical discontinuity or unsmoothness, like you would see from a shader like this, the curvature evaluation, it's important, but it's definitely not on my number one on the list. Now, I tend to use mean, and all of these give different methods of showing curvature. So you really got to try them all. Mean and print max are very similar in their contours, but what I get with max, I'm going to turn this up a bit because it's actually fairly slow. I don't think I need it to be that. So you can see if I slide it up too high, it starts banding on me. You see aliasing, and mean gets rid of that. So basically, what does mean do? It cuts circles on the surfaces, on like every point it samples. It's a little bit like curvature combs, but mean takes the largest circle and the smallest circle and divides it in half. Gaussian takes the smallest circle and the largest circle and doubles it. It just gives you a different depiction. Now remember, this is much more mathematical, so it's a little bit trickier. And they are, and I'm going to say, I'm a student at learning alias. I don't understand all of these different shaders really. I mean, when I say understand, I mean really know what's going on all the time, because it is tricky. So I crank it up and immediately I see a problem right here. This appears to me to be a break of some kind. But remember, the continuity tool said this was alright. See, it's green. So I don't know. So I would imagine that if this is the boundary, so I would imagine that, I'm just going to pick one here. These two are okay because they're tangent. These two are okay because they're curvature. So maybe it's a G3 break of some kind, which would mean like these CVs, all of these, that these maybe need to go up. So then I don't just randomly move CVs. I take it, oh yeah, I see it. I don't think I'm going to be able to change this in my ideas. See, this surface here that we raised to degree 7 to make this transition between these three CVs more gentle is going to haunt us for this boundary. So I would have to change this surface, and let's check this one out. So maybe I'd have to move this hull down a little bit, or maybe I'd have to change this hull a little bit. I'm not going to do that because that would require, I mean, that's a serious modification, and I don't think it's worth it. So in this case you have to say, okay, are we really going to make it perfect? Is this the point in time when we make the model perfect and we make everything right? No. We have got a fully blended C-pillar that's still in a somewhat upper class concept phase. But we're constructing it in such a way that if people want to go back in and make those changes, they have the CVs and the patches, and it's constructed in a way that you can do it. Not that it would not take a lot of work, but you could do it. You don't have to remove all of it and do it again. So this G3 break is going to be really hard. Now I think it's a G3 break, but let me just go into regular shading, pick these two surfaces, and use the dynamic section tool. This tool is going to be very handy to see because the curvature combs never lie. I mean, they do sometimes, but anyway, they're a good analysis tool. Let's turn on visual clip, and I'm gonna put on some planes, and that looks okay. Let's try a little bit more, and you can see there, that's pretty good. Persistent sections, so when I go out of the tool I still have it. And let me see. Yep, see? We've got a break. So we have the curvature here, and then it's dipping down to match the other boundary, which gives us curvature continuity. And you see this small difference in the comb? That's within our tolerance, okay? So we're working to within a tolerance. And it will never be perfect unless it's perfect. But on a blend like this, I mean, seriously. So this is the tolerance, and I don't care. But the general characteristic of the comb going down and making like a little dip is something that I don't like. I would like to get rid of this, or at least make it somewhat better. And I think that we can do that. So because I turned persistent sections on, I'm going to keep this as I adjust the surface, because it will basically make true sections. You could argue that you've got an inflection here, inflection here, inflection here, inflection here, but seriously, I don't think that's a big deal. This, and you can see it also from the shader. Now, it is true that these inflections will probably get better once we start tweaking this boundary, because this is seriously, you know, it's got something bad going on here. But, you know, the zone with our two inflections, it's okay. So, oh, we've got two inflections here too. Alright, we'll see what that gives. Anyway, this is something I really want to change. So I'm going to save the file. I'll call it part nothing really. Part 3 done. And because I still have construction history, first what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the CVs and see what could possibly be causing this. So I look at the CVs, and this is a bit too low. So I think I'm going to have to push this up. So I'm going to take a bit of a pot shot and I'm going to look at it like this because I see the combs the best. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to temporarily turn off my CV hulls just so I see the curved CVs. And I'm just going to start playing around with this. And if it's really bad, trust me, I'll do an undo. Now in this way, it's really nice that I have my performance options turned off. I bet you didn't expect that. No, I like it off here because I want to move it around a little bit. Just play around, and then when I let go, I'll see it update. Because I don't want it updating all the time. It will be too slow. Now this is one of those cases. Usually I turn it on, but in this case I don't. So I look at the comb. Okay, the change there is really small. I'm going to undo, and I'm going to do that again, but a little bit more drastic. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to undo, and then redo, and really look at the changes. Undo, redo. Yeah, I think I like it. It's not gotten rid of the problem, but it is better. Undo, redo. And the cool thing is I can move my viewpoint, and I still have the undo and redo from the last time I did an edit operation, so the camera doesn't count. So again I do an undo, and I do a redo. I do notice that it's moved quite a bit, more than I expected. But maybe that's what it takes. Starting to think maybe I shouldn't have turned off my hulls, but we'll see. So I think this has been improved. So now I'm going to select this CV. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So something like that. Oh yeah, that's better. I'm going to do an undo, and then a redo. Undo, redo. Yep, that's better. Certainly it's not perfect, but it's just getting that a little bit better. And these are going to be trickier because these are controlled with a line to the pillar. So maybe I'll have to live with that. Anyway, I've gotten this somewhat better, so I'm going to remove the curvature combs. I'm going to turn on the CV hull, and I'm going to see that I didn't just totally destroy something. Because if you just trust on one tool, you can think, whoa, it's better, but then you check it with another tool, or you turn on the CV hull, and you have this one CV like jutting out like 10 kilometers, and that's just not good. That's just not right. And I fear I have done that. Oh, this is dipping down a whole lot. Let me see. No, it's okay. Yeah, this seems dippy. But yeah, see, guess what? This is dippy. Right? This CV right here dips down too much. Wait, let me get a good view of this. There, see how compared to this and that CV you've got an angle? And with this blend we would want it to follow like an arc. We don't want this dip. The curvature combs showed us that, but guess what? This needs to have curvature continuity with the pillar. So in order to fix that, we would need to fix the pillar. And again, I will refrain from that in this stage. So we're doing the best we can with what we've got. And you don't always have 3 weeks to get a upper class concept model done. You just want it to be realistic enough so that it will be evaluated to its truest, and the design is not, I mean, the last thing you want is for someone to say, no, we're not going to go with that design just because you didn't get the continuity right on your surfaces and alias, even though maybe if you'd gotten it good, the consensus would have been otherwise. Maybe if it would have been good and it would have shown you the truth of what it could really look like, maybe the consensus would have been, whoa, actually, that's not a bad design. Maybe we should go through with that. So it's very important to do the best with what you can, but don't try to be a rock star, getting it perfect every time, because that's not reality. That's not the real life situation. So we've changed that around a little bit. Now I'm curious. So we gotten a little better. CVs still look pretty much in line. I'm curious if this is any better, because we did fix that boundary. Well, we worked on that boundary. I don't know. If I see this, where we were not able to work on the boundary because we'd have to adjust the parent surf, I see a more distinct edge. When I crank it up and I get to about the middle, it seems to be a little bit better. So I think we did change it for the better, a little, but not a whole lot. But think about it, these are really small changes. We're talking about a boundary where the curvature continuity has been achieved and the locator proves us that. Another good thing to do after you've done a check like that, a change like that, is to